Coming up on Network Africa, thousands of people flee as Democratic Republic of Congo rebels claim control of Goma city. Over a dozen peacekeepers killed as the UN Security Council condemns what it calls the unauthorized presence of external forces in eastern DRC. Plus, in N'Djamena, residents rally for French troops withdrawal from Chad. Hello and welcome to the program. This week I'm Layo Olarinde. We begin with the crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where Rwandan-backed rebels have taken over much of the city of Goma in the eastern region. The sound of gunfire filled the air this morning, with reports of Congolese and Rwandan troops firing at each other across the border. Some Congolese troops have followed a rebel order to hand over their weapons to UN peacekeepers. In less than a month, the rebel advance has displaced more than 400,000 civilians. There have also been reports of a mass escape from a prison in Goma. A security source told local media that the prison holding 3,000 inmates was totally torched and that the jailbreak had resulted in deaths. Many parts of Goma city have also been cut off from power in many areas of the city amid the entry of the rebels. And as a result of this crisis, thousands of people, including Congolese soldiers, are fleeing into Rwanda as M23 rebels advance on the eastern Congolese city of Goma. Several sites on the outskirts of the city, sheltering more than 300,000 displaced people, are said to be completely emptied out in the space of few hours. The UN says as fighting escalates in the city, key roads surrounding Goma have been blocked, cutting off vital access points, while the city's airport is paralyzed, halting all evacuation and humanitarian efforts. Since the beginning of this year, more than 400,000 people have been forced from their homes in the provinces of North and South Kivu near the border with Rwanda. The Rwanda-backed rebel group claimed to have seized control of Goma, defying UN Security Council demands to end their offensive. Well, United Nations peacekeepers have also begun evacuating their staff and families to Rwanda. So far, 13 peacekeepers have unfortunately lost their lives. They were killed in the eastern region, and these peacekeepers are from South Africa, Malawi, and Uruguay. The United Nations mission in the country, known as MONUSCO, said its quick reaction forces had been actively engaged in intensive combat, with its heavy artillery firing against M23 positions. Now, some 15,000 peacekeepers are known to be present in the DRC. The UN's World Food Programme, WFP, have also been forced to pause their operations in Goma and the wider North Kivu province. The region says it had made the move due to the escalation in violence, and adding that 800,000 people in North Kivu rely on vital food and nutrition assistance. According to a statement released, it will restart its operations when the situation is safe for its communities and staff. However, operations in the rest of DRC will continue uninterrupted. In the meantime, the Democratic Republic of Congo's top diplomat is calling for international accountability in addressing her country's ongoing conflict. The DRC's State Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs, Therese Wagner, says this crisis is not a DRC-specific crisis, adding that the challenge right now is in areas where MONUSCO is still present. During a press briefing at the UN headquarters, she also inquired how it is permissible that a country, one of the largest troop contributing countries, gets away with killing peacekeepers. The minister also reflected on the security dynamics in the DRC, expressing appreciation for the support and resilience of DRC forces, MONUSCO troops, as well as troops from the South African Defense Corporation.
The withdrawal of MONUSCO was sequential, and it was not a mistake, because in the areas where MONUSCO withdrew, we have seen sustained peace, we have seen progress, and we have seen stability. The challenge that we find ourselves in right now is in areas where MONUSCO is still present. So this has nothing to do with MONUSCO's presence. This has something to do with the fact that a neighboring country, Rwanda, has been permitted by the international community, by its donors, by its partners, to wreak havoc in the DRC, in particular in North Kivu, even in the presence of United Nations peacekeeping troops, with one of the most robust mandates of the United Nations. What I say to troop contributing countries, and this is very important because Rwanda itself is one of the UN's largest troop contributing countries, is that this crisis is not a DRC specific crisis. This should compel all troop contributing countries to engage in a robust conversations with the United Nations, with DPKO, on what it means to be a troop contributing countries. How is it permissible that a country, one of the largest troop contributing countries, gets away with killing peacekeepers, as peacekeepers from South Africa, Malawi, Uruguay were killed in less than 24 hours. It is a tense situation. We are following and monitoring it closely. We are grateful for the support and the resilience of our own armed forces, but also the presence and the support of MONUSCO troops as well as SADC troops. I will not delve into speculations. I am confident in the resolve of all involved forces to uphold the territorial integrity of the DRC, and most importantly, to protect the civilian lives which are at stake right now. Now, when it comes to sanctions and to the absence thereof, more importantly, of course we're disappointed. Of course we are disappointed because as an African country, how often is it that we have to listen to the lessons, that we have to listen to what we ought to be doing, the rules we are to be following, and at the same time find ourselves in this edifice and see that the rules that we all consider to be holy, to be precious.
Let's discuss this further. Joining us now is Kobus Marias, an independent defense analyst and former Shadow Minister for Defense in South Africa. He speaks to us now from Cape Town. Thank you for joining us on Network Africa.
Good afternoon to your viewers.
Good afternoon to you. What are your thoughts on what we're seeing play out right now in Goma City?
It is a very sad situation. The moment at anywhere in the world where private citizens are displaced and it creates a humanitarian crisis, obviously that is a sorry sight. It is even worse, I think, in the case of the Eastern DRC, where the M23 are apparently, equipped and assisted and hosted by Rwanda, the neighboring country. And that is an unattainable situation and should not be, should not be allowed to happen. What is important for me is that when you look at the Eastern African group, or that borders of the Eastern DRC, all that countries, including the DRC, are members of the East African community. Now, while appreciating the role that United Nations must play, and what they have done already up to date, I don't see and hear the role and the responsibilities of the Eastern African Community Group, the Economic Community Group, and the African Union. This is not a South African war. I mean, we have 5 SADC countries that is in between South Africa and the DRC. So what is happening in the DRC is no threat to the South African integrity and the safety of our people. However, if it is a threat to the South, I ask the question, where are Angola and where are Zambia, who is the immediate neighboring SADC countries and members? but they are not involved. Why aren't they not involved? Is it because they feel that there's no threat to them? And is it true that they feel that the problem must be resolved around the table by Eastern African Community Group countries and members and the African Union? There is no ways that this conflict will be resolved through the barrel of a gun. And we must, hopefully, the United Nations and the member states will use their influence so that they can get a peace, a ceasefire situation, and so that this active war that is going on, which is becoming a civil war in the Eastern DRC, can be resolved before any further lives are lost. There's already too many civilians that has been displaced, and it's not fair and reasonable on the families of the South African deceased in the DRC. The same to the Malawians and the other UN member states soldiers, fallen soldiers. So a solution must be found. Otherwise, that will impact not only the whole of the Central Africa, but it can escalate into further north, west, east, and south.
Indeed. You mentioned, the East African community earlier on. We're seeing Kenya calling for an emergency regional leaders meeting. Now, what should be the crux of that meeting? Because there are implications of this crisis for regional stability, on regional stability.
Remember, I think it's a very good thing that Kenya is calling for that, because Kenya is one of the big members of the Eastern African Community Group. And it fits into my narrative that the East African Community Group must sit around the table and resolve this. This affects all of them. It affects all of their economies and their civilians. Remember, the rumors are that all of the rebel groups, not only the M23, who is reportedly operating from Rwanda land, but all the other rebel groups. There's the allegations that they operate from neighboring countries like Uganda. Now, if that is the case, then Uganda, Kenya, DRC, Rwanda, Burundi, all of those nations, Tanzania, must sit around the table and resolve this problem. They know what the root cause of these problems are, and it is not something that we should shoot each other and kill each other. If it is about the land of the DRC and Rwanda, there are international laws and rules and regulations, and the United Nations and the African Union must play a more significant role. I haven't heard anything from the African Union, and obviously from the UN. I hope that they will encourage and put pressure on the African Union to play a more constructive role to get these countries around the table and resolve their problems. Because I cannot see the justification of killing more people and sacrificing lives of people who's got no interest really in that war, and referring there to the South African soldiers that has died since Friday.
Well, this crisis, the DRC is accusing Rwanda of being in this crisis and has also severed all diplomatic ties with Rwanda amid this rebel offensive. But how can diplomatic efforts now be strengthened to de-escalate tensions?
See, one can either hide behind a conflict and say that we don't want to speak to each other, or you can see this stumbling block, which is a major stumbling block, as an opportunity to force people to sit around the table. If something, they have not felt the force and the pressure to really resolve this problem. We know that there are many rumors of why they're doing it. We know that, I said, it comes from the Hutus and the Tutsi conflicts of many years ago. Some people say it's about mineral rights. Whatever the case might be, and whatever the people want to put on the table, they must be allowed to put that on the table, and it must be resolved. But that's why those countries must sit there, and they must have, from the African Union, people who are objective. And even if the United Nations is prepared to assist in that regard as well. Because you need some neutral people and neutral parties, non-partisan parties to say, you know, you believe you are right, you are unfair, here is the evidence for or the evidence against. They must use this opportunity because there might not be many more like this that we have got now. As I've said, I mean, we must also remember that many of the countries are supporting rebel groups and actually are equipping them incredibly well. In some cases, and even most of the cases, they are these days better equipped than the South African National Defence Force members. Our soldiers are well trained, they are brave, but if they are sent into a war situation, proverbially with their hands down behind their back, then you must expect them to come home to their families in body bags, which is not fair, which is not what they signed up for. They signed up for peacekeeping missions, not to fighting wars between conflicting parties in the Eastern DRC.
All right, then we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Cobus Marias, independent defense analyst and former Shadow Minister for Defense in South Africa. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you very much, and fantastic day to yourself.
We continue in Chad, where hundreds of residents have gathered in the town center to demand the complete withdrawal of French military forces from the country. The protests, organized by the Chad Platform, are calling for French troops to vacate the country's N'Djamena base, the last French military outpost, by the January 31st deadline. The demonstration, approved by local authorities and was secured by the National Police, highlight calls for sovereignty and also an end to foreign influence in the affairs of the country. President Mahamat Idris Deby emphasized that his recent national address that the decision to terminate military agreements with France stems from Chad's commitment to full sovereignty. French bases in Faya and Abeche have already been handed over to Chadian forces, leaving the N'Djamena base as the final site for French withdrawal. Several locals from Ethiopia's Amhara region are calling for more support from the government after thousands of people were displaced due to a series of earthquakes that hit the country. Locals are now living in tents at an internally displaced persons camp as various buildings and houses are collapsed and heavily damaged following the quakes. Residents also complain of not enough resources for everyone because of the high number of IDPs in the region. Media reports indicate that close to 10,000 residents in Amhara, over 60,000 in Afar, and 20,000 in the Oromia region are displaced due to earthquakes as authorities continue to conduct evacuation procedures. More than 32 districts in the North Shewa zone of Amhara region experienced severe damage to property, including 360 houses, 908 hectares of farmland, and 23 kilometers of roads. The series of earthquakes began in September 2024, but has since intensified in late December. Here in Nigeria, the Lagos state government has called for concerted efforts to achieve zero fire incidents in the markets with the inauguration of safety and emergency marshals. The Lagos State Safety Commission said it has become necessary to have market representatives that will ensure emergency preparedness in Lagos markets to prevent fire disasters. Our correspondent, Dari Idowu, reports.
Lagos Island markets, a choice destination for a wide variety of affordable goods, are also known for frequent fire outbreaks. In the first 6 months of 2024, the Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service says it responded to 1,085 emergencies, of which 884 were fire-related incidents. At least 82 lives were lost, while about 37 billion worth of properties destroyed in various incidents within 1 year in Lagos State. These alarming figures necessitated the community engagement initiative led by the Lagos State Safety Commission.
For where they enjoy your wire, they check and say, this is not the smell, or this is not the burn. Because now from there, those things they start.
The DG of the commission, Larry Mojola, explained that the training is designed to equip participants with skills in hazard identification, prevention, response and recovery in and around the markets.
We've done this in a number of markets across Lagos State, smaller markets. But the reason why we have delayed the one for Lagos Island is because we wanted to get our model right. And we believe that we've got our model right now, that we have involved the LCDAs, we've involved the CDCs, we've involved the CDAs, we've involved the Babalojas. The Babaloja, as you speak, is here. So it's a top-down approach. It's also a bottom-up approach where we're bringing everybody together. There will be the first line of whistleblowers. There will be the first line of people that would identify some of these infractions, and we're empowering them to report directly to us.
Recent fire incidents in the market have been traced to issues such as poor electrical wiring, overcrowded spaces, illegal structures, and the absence of adequate fire safety measures. New safety and emergency marshals are inaugurated and are expected to play key roles in preventive measures set by authorities and serve as a bridge between the markets and emergency response agencies.
The safety marshal that we have just trained now will be reporting. There's going to be a line of report to Lagos State Safety Commission, and if there is any impediment to their, function, they will quickly, inform Lagos State Commission that these are the impediments that we have. Then Lagos State Commission will now rise to the occasion and, assist in that respect.
Through this initiative, the Lagos State government is hoping to create a safer market environment and prevent avoidable losses. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
Egypt has launched what it calls its largest humanitarian aid convoy for the residents of the Gaza Strip under the banner Sharing for Humanity. The convoy, consisting of 305 trucks, is loaded with an estimated 4,200 tons of food and humanitarian aid, along with 11 fully equipped ambulances. It also includes medical devices, essential supplies, medicines, large quantities of non-perishable food items, ready-to-eat canned goods, clothing, blankets, as well as baby milk and food. Egyptian Prime Minister Mustafa Madububi notes that this marks the 5th convoy organized by the Taya Mish Fund in collaboration with civil society organizations to be able to provide assistance and relief to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Over the weekend, a candlelight vigil took place in Nairobi as families and activists paid tribute to those killed in last year's protests and showed solidarity with those still missing. People in attendance lit candles in remembrance of those killed in the June 25th protests and subsequent anti-abduction protests in the country. One of the victims of the protest was a 12-year-old Kennedy Onyango, who was killed after being reportedly shot 8 times. His mother, Jacinta, was at the vigil, calling on the government to help her family. Widespread protests erupted last year as the government announced a new finance bill which would have seen a tax increase. Thousands of demonstrators, particularly young people, took to the streets, resulting in deadly clashes with police. Since the June 25th protest, Kenya has seen also a significant rise in the abduction of anti-government protesters.
We're here because we are here to mourn and also to reflect because we have lost our comrades in this fight. We have about 127 members who are Kenyans, especially young people, who are still missing. That is the case of enforced disappearances. In terms of deaths, we have recorded more than 63 deaths out as the aftermath of the June 25th protest that happened in Kenya.
And finally, Morocco has hosted the 35th edition of the Marrakech International Marathon on Sunday with over 15,000 runners participating. Organizers say the number is record-breaking for attendance. Spectators cheered as participants dashed towards the finish line. Winners including first place finisher Kien Kipyegon from Kenya and runner-up Buganta Suafin from Morocco. All they received their awards. According to local media, Kipyegon won first place. That's him right there, with a time of 2 hours, 8 minutes and 48 seconds. Ahead of Buganta, who was 2 hours, 9 minutes and 13 seconds, and Omar Shitachin, 2 hours, 9 minutes and 25 seconds. In the women's marathon, Ethiopian runner Sege won the title, completing the race in 2 hours, 25 minutes and 44 seconds.
Mesdames et messieurs, c'était la cérémonie protocolaire de remise des prix.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.